Welcome to Today in Space. We are back for another episode of the podcast. This week, we're going to do one on the human factor. These are a new episode that we've been working with where we talk about being human, but digging a little bit deeper and picking one aspect. We've talked about addiction. I've talked about my addiction before. That was one of our first episodes. We've talked about ego and confidence, and this week we're going to talk about dedication and what it is to be dedicated to something. I think I grew up in a world where this was something that was maybe appreciated or taught more back in the day. So I want to talk about what it means to me today as a 34-year-old engineer and podcaster and creator and someone who's trying to find and continue to work on the things that I love and that bring me joy, but it's also of value to other folks. So let's talk about dedication, the mission, and let's break it down about what that means for a human being. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in to the human factor. So, before we start, let's talk a little bit about this hat here. So this is the VeeFriends Dedicated Dragonfly. You can see the patch right over here. There's that little guy right there. But I picked this up. This is a corduroy hat. These are very popular now. I was watching online and they were talking about selling these for a while or showing them off, and I like them. I was a little worried about how a corduroy hat might actually work in the summer, but you know what? It works, and it's really nice. I love this desert sand look for the hat, but more importantly, I chose it because of the word dedicated. And I think through learning, about meeting more people who are also in this VeeFriends community, but more importantly, that are online and doing their own thing, I kind of had a moment to reflect on how much work I've put into this podcast and to kind of my learnings as an engineer and as a communicator this last decade. Think about it. This is episode, I think, 349 is when this is going to come out. It's almost 350 episodes, almost 10 years that I have been doing this, and there's a level of dedication that comes along with that. I think I have seen over the years many, many people start and stop or never start, and there's few people that I think stay in the game long enough to see the fruits of their labors. Now, for me, this podcast became more of a creative outlet and a way for me to express myself, and I wanted to grow it the right way, the long way, but more importantly, grow as myself. This podcast was created when I was arguably at the lowest point of my life, at least feeling the lowest point of feeling confident about myself. For those that don't know, I'll give a quick synopsis. I went to school for aerospace engineering, and around my junior year, I realized I wasn't going to graduate on time. I had to make a lot of different moves. I ended up going into the workforce early, which ended up being the best decision that I think I could have made, and ended up learning from the Westminster Tool family down there, learning about injection molding, but really engineering and making things. And so it took me 7 years to get my aerospace engineering degree, basically part-time for those second 4 years just to finish out my degree. But I got a lot of work experience and I got a lot of life experience. And in that journey is where I ended up realizing that I wanted to do the podcast to have it as like a digital resume, right? And then the 3D printing shop, AG 3D Printing, where we design stuff and 3D print all the time. All of that started from this podcast and just from finding a way to teach myself new things and to learn new things. And to think that I've been doing that for a decade now is crazy. Now, we do need to talk about one of the things that we use to continue to stay as dedicated and hardworking as we are today. And going back to the focus on my body here, Magic Mind has helped so much with that little extra piece for my body. You know, I'm someone who has kind of used coffee and caffeine as a crutch to continue to work hard and push through. But, you know, the reality is that caffeine doesn't give you energy. It blocks the adenosine neuroreceptors in your brain, and those neuroreceptors that tell you that you're tired. And when those receptors unblock 1 to 3 hours later, you experience a sudden drop in energy called the caffeine crash. The Magic Mind formula uses 12 ingredients to help support your body's energy engine, ATP, instead, day after day. And Magic Mind is not like some fleeting charge up. Like, it really does a good job of spreading out the energy. And honestly, for me, it's a mental performance shot. And I started taking it again recently and took the 7 days challenge. And, you know, between days 3 and 7 were really interesting because I had been on a coffee binge for a little bit here and really was just feeling exhausted by the end of the day and too early, right? Like before the end of the workday, and then traffic would just crush me. Where those first 3 days when I started taking Magic Mind again, it was like I was starting to feel like myself again in a lot of different ways. There was just little things, less stress, a little bit less anxiety, and it was like I was waking up from some weird dream. And then by day 7, going 7 days in a row, my things were affecting me less. I was building better work habits. I was forgetting less things. And honestly, I was getting more sleep, and I was just dealing with people better in life. And a lot of that is just because the Magic Mind performance shot here has so many nutrients that we end up losing with the coffee race, right? You end up just kind of burning yourself out and just being tired. And most of the time when we're going for the coffee, we're just trying to forget that we're tired. Where with Magic Mind, I've noticed that even after a week of using it every day, I am building up back to being a real human being again. So if you want to check it out, go to magicmind.com/today20. There's a limited offer where you can use now, and that gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off first-time purchases with code today20 at checkout. That's magicmind.com/today20 to get your 20% off your first-time purchase or 40% off your first subscription. So check it out. It's a game changer. And if you're as dedicated as I am to your mission, Magic Mind makes a great addition to your toolkit. So check it out. magicmind.com/today20. But before we get any further, I wanted to define dedicated before we get any deeper into this conversation. So dedicated is Oxford Languages definition. Dedicated is devoted to a task or purpose and having single-minded loyalty or integrity. And for me, one of the things that I think I relate with a lot with space is the mission, right? You know, when astronauts have an expedition, like our astronaut friend Don Pettit, who's going to be going up there for Expedition 72, he is going up there with a mission. Like they have some free time, but they have their whole mission ahead of them planned for. They're running simulations. We just recently had a situation where a simulation of an astronaut going through decompression sickness was actually heard on the live ISS stream, something that's usually on a back stream we don't hear. And it's serious. I mean, when everyone heard that on the stream, people thought there was an emergency on the ISS, but in reality, that was just us seeing the background of how dedicated those entire teams are to make sure that they're prepared for every moment. And to me, space and human space travel is the perfect example of what it means to be dedicated. And I relate with that a lot, like to my core. I think if I don't have a mission, here on this podcast, our mission is to spread love and spread science. It's been that from basically the very beginning. And it's taken many different forms. We're looking to build a fantastic future for all of us. And these are dedicated mission statements that I put together, AG 3D printing, bringing ideas into reality with 3D printing. They're simple, but there's a lot to them, and really at the core of why I feel I need a mission statement when I'm going after something is because that's just how I'm wired. I want to understand the why of what we're doing. And so a mission statement is really important. And I'd be interested to know how many of you also have that need to understand the why first. And I think that's partly why I struggled so much in school, was because the why of why we're learning this, or the why of why is this important? Why is the answer only that way? Why is that approach the only approach to take? I'm sure it came across as annoying to a lot of professors, but for me, I've learned that the mission is really important. And if I don't have a mission, I don't function super well. I can't access that next level of drive that I seem to be able to. I mean, you would have to have some kind of drive and determination and discipline to be dedicated. And reflecting on 10 years of doing this, I realized that dedicated is kind of a heavier word too, because dedication also requires focus and a sacrifice of basic things. I think I have gotten a lot of very, very valuable information from 2 books from an author named Steven Pressfield. The first is The War of Art, that talks about the internal struggle of people doing anything creative. That could be something like this, like the podcast. It could be someone who's an artist. It could be someone who is dedicated to a mission. The people who are asking why, like if you're in the human business, right? If you're taking care of people, like you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're in special ed care, like whatever the scenario is that you might have a mission. Even firefighters, there's this internal resistance that you're dealing with, and that book really put it into perspective. And the next book, Turning Pro, I think was a big moment where I understood dedication and really what it means to devote yourself, to dedicate yourself to what it means. It does require that you're not going to do the little things. Your Friday nights are not going to look like they looked like when you were in high school. They're not going to be going out with buddies and hanging out. And I'm at this place in my life where I'm kind of balancing going maybe a little too hard on work and stuff like that, and I've found myself in this grind that I'm trying to loosen myself out of, mostly so that I can focus my dedication back on my health. The mind is a really powerful thing, but it needs a body as well. And my dedication over the years and needing to pay bills and drive long distances for work has taken a toll on my body. And so I've really retuned my dedication to myself recently. And a funny thing that happens is, like, I was a little worried when I was going to make that switch that I would lose the drive and the progress and the quality and all that from this podcast. But, 10 years, almost 350 episodes that are at a minimum 20 minutes. I mean, let's just take, first 100 episodes, they were long. they were very, very long episodes. And yeah, we're talking 175 hours of just recorded content, and you could easily multiply that by 10 for the actual amount of hours that I've spent recording and editing. And that doesn't even touch the amount of time that I've spent researching and learning. So, 1,700 hours for just the multiply of 10. And I mean, yeah, if we just multiply that by 10 again, we're looking at over that 10,000 hour mark. And it sticks. It's like training muscles for a very long time, and you do get better at it. But it does require you to take the next level, to really understand what you need to do. Like, how do you design your day and your week to get the most out of yourself for whatever it is that you're working on? Again, like me, I'm looking to communicate complex things like science and space and 3D printing in non-complex ways, and to simplify it so that there can be a conversation about it. We're not looking to have it be kind of like broken up and I spend all this time focusing on the specific way to do this. I think what I can provide is a way to discuss this and have it be something that you can talk to me on the street and it's going to be the same conversation. That was something I wanted to do very early on, and that takes a lot of work, and it takes, I'm not necessarily an outgoing person per se. I mean, you're probably laughing if you're seeing like this. Like, I've got almost 350 episodes where I talk about myself, like on these episodes, right? It's kind of gets a little serious and raw, but for me, like, that is what ends up coming from that, the conversations I have from people and with people, and the different people that we get to reach and have more conversations with, like, all of that is worth maybe the little bit of anxiousness that I have. But I also was a musician and was playing 3/4 of the year, basically all year through high school, for competitions and performances. So there's definitely an extrovert. It's mostly extroverted, but I like to crawl in my hole and rest sometimes too. So, the human factor is all about just understanding ourselves as human beings. It's kind of me figuring out myself, but relearning myself, right? Like picking these individual words like dedicated and kind of just going a little bit deeper. And what does it mean to me? What does hard work and like these different things, what do they mean? And can I make it a story that then helps someone throughout their day, right? Maybe it helps you think about yourself or someone you love, maybe someone you're struggling getting a connection with and understanding a little bit better. I've learned that learning about personalities and the different ways that people think and feel, and everyone has their own strength, and that work of emotional intelligence and understanding how to talk with people has been extremely useful in this very weird niche of thing that I'm doing here on this podcast and that we're all a part of here. But it took a lot of hard work, and it's been a cool last few months to just sit back and reflect on just how much has gone into this, and I'm really looking forward to what the future comes of all of this, right? What does the next 10 years look like? Never mind the next 5. What does me focusing and dedicating myself to healing my body and getting myself to this new balance of body and mind, where do we go from there? We hope it brings us to Texas and Florida and all the places where there are new rocket launches. But more importantly, we hope it brings more interactions with real people. We're planning on doing some stargazing parties this summer. So if you're in the New England area, we'll be posting about that. So make sure to look out for that and let us know if you're interested, so that way we can make sure to send you an alert when that does go out. But it feels like a new era, and after this last decade, it's cool to reflect. I think I've said that a bunch of times. So we'd love to know what dedicated and dedication mean to you. What does the word mean? How does it relate to you in your life? Or maybe someone that you know that maybe this is a better word to describe them. But for me, I wear it as a badge of honor, And it just helps me remember all the hard work that I've done, because just being that person on a mission, sometimes you forget how long you've been on that mission. And I'm sure that's how future missions in space and living long-term in space, missions to Mars that are extremely long, right? 9 months there, 9 months back, never mind. That's 18 months, a year and a half without your even mission on Mars, which undoubtedly will be a good amount of time, because you got to wait for that orbital window to come back. But that's besides the point. We've got a really interesting human challenge coming up here when we're going into space and really reinvigorating human spaceflight. We're in this great point where now we have 2 human-rated spacecraft. Obviously, Boeing's spacecraft needs to come back and land and finish all its tests, but it's at the space station. Dragon is continuing to bring humans to the space station, and Blue Origin is going to bring their heavy lift rocket out soon, and Starship is just rolling along, and we can't wait for the 5th test flight. If you want to learn more about what happened in the last one, go to the last episode. But yeah, folks, we are excited about the future, and we're focusing back again on what it means to be dedicated for human spaceflight and remember the mistakes of the past so that we don't repeat them in the future. But it also helps us realign our mission for making these human beings safe on their travel as they risk their lives to be these pioneers that bring us to the next stage here. So just a human factor episode. We wanted to talk about dedication and what it means to me, and we'd love to hear from you. So hit us up on social media, Today in Space, on TikTok, Today in Space Pod, on X and Instagram. You can email us anytime at todayinspacepodcast@gmail.com, and you can check out our Facebook page, Today in Space Podcast. And, of course, make sure to check out our 3D printing lab, AG 3D Printing, where we have our Starship rocket pen, we've got our James Webb Space Telescope coaster, and a whole bunch of great 3D printed gifts for the nerd in your life, whether that's you or a loved one. And also, if you've got any kind of 3D printing projects that you're interested in doing, hit us up. We have a whole lab of 3D printers, so many 3D printers here that are ready to bring your ideas into reality. So hit us up, we'll give you a free quote, and we'll add as much value as possible, especially if you let us know you're from the podcast, we'll hook you up. So ag3dprinting.etsy.com for our shop, and ag3d-printing.com to see our website and everything our lab has to offer and to get that free quote. So, folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to let us know what you think, and we hope you continue to spread love and spread science. Be well. We'll see you on the next episode. See ya.